My name is Lucy. I'm 37 years old. David, my husband, who is a year older than me, and I have been married for 12 years. I met David through work. He was an employee at a client company of the firm I worked for. Our relationship deepened through our shared hobby of tennis, and after 2 years of dating, we got married. Even after marriage, I wanted to continue working, but we had difficulty conceiving. Finally, after infertility treatments, I got pregnant with our son in the 7th year of our marriage, which led me to quit my job. Now, I am a mother of one, and despite the challenges, I enjoy my daily life. Originally, I planned to return to work after giving birth to our son, Mark. However, my husband said, "I can support Lucy and Mark with my salary alone. You don't need to work, right? Mark would be happier with Lucy around, and when things get tough, we can rely on my parents." Appreciating his words, I decided to quit my job. Indeed, parenting was much harder than I expected. I often suffered from sleep deprivation, trying to match the erratic sleep schedule of Mark. Putting myself last, I centered my life around Mark. It was tough, but the joy of watching Mark grow up close outweighed everything. I was deeply grateful for David for allowing me to spend my days like this. As time passed, and Mark started kindergarten last year, David's family helped us purchase a new apartment with a loan. We were about to give up on it because it was way over our budget, but their offer of support was a huge relief. David's family runs a large company. They are wealthy. Susan, my mother-in-law, didn't quite approve of our marriage. She doted on David, her only child and son, and openly said during family meetings, "I wish David had married someone more beautiful, from a better family, and more charming." She often questioned me about my alma mater, my father's job, and what I was doing, making it feel more like an interview than a family meeting. Luckily, her not liking me much meant that the topic of us living together never came up. After Mark was born, the harshness towards me lessened, and we, the three of us, lived happily without much interference from my in-laws. Or so I thought. I was blissfully unaware. I never doubted David's love for me, and with such an adorable son, I couldn't imagine David having an affair. Never in my wildest dreams did I think something like this, straight out of a manga or drama, would happen to me. I noticed something amiss over a trivial matter. One day, while transferring clothes from the laundry basket to the washing machine, I found foundation on David's shirt. Not just that, it had a distinct smell of women's perfume. He had said he'd be late due to work the day before, so I thought maybe he had gone to a club for a business gathering. I always noticed the same perfume scent when he came home late. The distinctive scent of the perfume made it easy to recognize. Curious, I casually asked David, "Why does your shirt always smell like the same perfume?" "It's the favorite perfume of a female staff member my boss likes. She often sits next to me, so the scent probably transfers." I felt something was off, but didn't probe further. Then, one day, I stumbled upon decisive evidence. David came home late again, saying he had to work overtime, and immediately went to take a shower. I was taking his clothes to the laundry room when I saw his phone open with a new message visible. The message said, "I'm so glad we could spend time together again today. It was fun. Let's make sure Lucy doesn't find out. Love you. Remember to play with Mark so it doesn't raise suspicions." accompanied by numerous heart emojis. In that moment, my suspicions turned into certainty. David takes long showers, so once he's in, he doesn't come out immediately. My head was spinning, and my hands were shaking, but I managed to take a photo of the message exchange to keep as evidence. David was wrong to have an affair despite having a family, and the woman knew he was married with a child, yet carried on regardless. I couldn't comprehend people who engage in affairs. Anger and disgust towards them both surged within me. It was common knowledge that David's family was wealthy. He worked at a company owned by his father, Jim, and everyone expected him to be the next president. Was this woman in it for David's money? Whether it was serious or just a fling, I couldn't forgive David for having an affair while having me and Mark in his life. However, Mark is only 5, and I am a housewife. We have decades of mortgage payments left on the apartment we just bought. It was clear that I couldn't take immediate action upon learning of David's affair. Despite being deeply shocked, I didn't show my turmoil and prepared breakfast as usual the next morning, sending David off with Mark.
"Dad, have a good day,"
Mark said, innocently smiling. David patted Mark's head and said, "Let's play together when I get back, Mark." Then turned to me. "Thanks for the send-off. I'll work hard for the family," and left the house. His words felt insincere. Having an affair, yet acting like nothing's wrong. At the moment, I discovered the affair. My love for David completely faded. But right now, there's nothing I can do. After dropping Mark at kindergarten, I would return home and ponder what to do next. I could confront David about the affair anytime, but now wasn't the right time. Mark is still young and adores his father. As a stay-at-home mom, handling life alone with Mark post-divorce seemed realistically challenging. My parents are too old and far away to rely on. I regretted quitting my job. Taking David's words at face value when he said he'd inherit his family business and that I could focus on taking care of Mark and the household. It would have been wiser to keep working for contingencies. Days of conflict continued. Wondering what choice to make. Could I deprive Mark of his father for my sake? He loves David so much. Whenever I thought of holding back from divorce, seeing the messages between David and his mistress reinforced my decision to go through with it. The other woman appeared to be in her early 20s. Their messages included lewd photos and conversations suggestive of a physical relationship. David, infatuated with someone over a decade younger, was no longer the husband I knew. David had no idea I knew about his affair. I somehow managed to keep calm daily without letting him know. On days he met his mistress and came back, he would bring gifts, probably out of guilt. Then he'd play the good father with Mark, which infuriated me even more. Before I knew about the affair, I genuinely loved watching David laugh and play with Mark. After finding out, my feelings cooled surprisingly quickly. Then one day, out of the blue, and not on a special occasion like my birthday or our anniversary, David gave me a present. "What's this all of a sudden? This necklace looks expensive." "To show my gratitude," he said cheerfully, "for all the hard work with the house and Mark. Please, take it." That night, I checked his phone and discovered that the necklace was meant for his mistress, who rejected it, calling it old-fashioned. Knowing it was a returned gift from his mistress, I threw it away as soon as David left for work. despite it being blameless. Half a year since the affair came to light, there was no sign of him stopping. He continued to bring home gifts after meeting his mistress and played happily with Mark. If he voluntarily helped with Mark or household chores, it meant he had met her that day. The simplicity of his actions was astounding. I didn't want Mark touched by the same hands that were involved in an affair, but Mark looked so happy when David was in a good mood. All I could do was endure. That's what I thought. Even in such times, I was steadily preparing for divorce. I started studying for various qualifications to ensure a smooth re-entry into the workforce post-divorce. I thought it would be difficult for a woman in her late 30s and a single mother to find a job otherwise. Ironically, having a divorce as a goal made my days busy and fulfilling. Then, one late night, my mobile phone rang suddenly. It was an unknown number. Startled by the ringtone, I initially ignored the call, but when it rang again from the same number, I reluctantly answered. "Hello? Who is this?" I asked.
"Sorry to call so late at night. This is the New York City Police. Is this Lucy's number?"
A male voice inquired. Shocked by the mention of the police, I was instantly alert. "Yes, this is Lucy. What can I do for the police?" I asked apprehensively.
"Is David your husband?"
"Yes."
"David has been in a car accident and is currently undergoing emergency surgery at the hospital. Can you come to the hospital immediately?"
he said. David had been in a serious car accident. "Understood. I'll be there right away," I replied, trying to keep calm as I woke up Mark and headed to the hospital the officer had mentioned. In the hospital room, David, having just undergone surgery, lay bandaged in various places. Beside him, presumably his mistress, a woman sat crying, her arm bandaged. Lost for words in this chaotic scene, the doctor who performed the surgery entered the room.
"David is not in life-threatening condition, but he has multiple complex fractures, so it will take a considerable time to return to normal life,"
he explained. After the doctor left, the young woman approached me. Hi, I'm Karen, David's junior at work." She introduced herself in a sweet tone. I didn't respond to the woman, just nodded slightly. David was conscious and kept awkwardly making excuses.
"I was just having dinner with Karen after work, but we got into a bit of a fight on the way back. She suddenly tried to get out in the middle of the road, and when I turned to stop her, this happened. I'm really sorry for the trouble,"
he said. Clearly, he intended not to mention that she was his mistress. Just as I was about to retort, the door to the hospital room burst open and my in-laws rushed in, looking frantic. Jim, already informed by someone from the company, walked up to my husband and slapped him hard on the cheek.
"Idiot! What the hell are you doing?"
he shouted in anger. Susan tried to calm him down, but Jim's fury didn't subside. Mark was taken outside the room by Jim's secretary as soon as they entered.
"Who is this woman? You've been out all night with her instead of being at home. The other party in the accident is the son of a familiar business associate. This is what happens when you fool around with young women,"
Jim yelled.
"I'm sorry, Dad, but I just had surgery,"
David muttered weakly. Ignoring David, my in-laws turned to me.
"Lucy, we are truly sorry for our son's behavior."
They both apologized deeply. "There's no need to apologize," I said. Interrupting me, they continued.
"We were wrong in our upbringing. We spoiled him for being an only child. It's our fault he turned out to be such an irresponsible man."
Jim apologized profusely. I decided to tell them the truth. I've known for over 6 months that David was having an affair. Ignoring David's shocked,
What? Why?
I continued. Mark is still young, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. We just received your support for the apartment, so divorce wasn't an option. I thought enduring this alone would suffice, but I never expected things to turn out this way. Jim fell silent for a while, then said,
It's late. Go home with Mark for now. We'd like to talk more tomorrow after Mark goes to kindergarten, if that's okay.
I agreed. The next day, I visited David's hospital room with his clothes and other items. Oh, isn't your girlfriend here today? I asked sarcastically. David laughed.
After she left yesterday, she messaged me she was going back to her parents' home, and I haven't been able to contact her since. She seemed scared of Dad's outburst. Young women are unreliable. Lucy, you're the one for me.
He was clearly trying to appease me. Realizing his approach wasn't working, he said earnestly,
I'm truly sorry. It was just a fling. Please forgive me.
But I ignored all his words. I'll leave these things here, I said, and left the room. He didn't seem to realize that he had admitted to the affair. Such a foolish man. Later, when it was time for my meeting with my in-laws, they arrived at our house and again apologized.
We're deeply sorry for our son's unforgivable actions.
Then Jim began to speak.
After hearing about the accident, we thought a lot about Lucy and Mark. We also immediately investigated the woman involved with David. It turns out she's a receptionist at a client company David was dealing with. They've been in a relationship for over 3 years. Lucy, you might not want to hear this, but I thought you should know.
Over 3 years. I had no idea it had been going on for that long. He started the affair when Mark was just 2 years old. I couldn't forgive him for cheating even though he had such a cute son.
Now, let's get to the main point. We came here today to hear what you really want, Lucy,
Jim said. When asked, I clearly stated, I've been thinking about divorcing David. My in-laws nodded in agreement, as if they expected my answer.
Lucy's decision is understandable. We've overlooked too much because he's our son, but his work performance and reputation at the company are poor. He's not fit to take over the business. Moreover, this accident has ruined an important business relationship. The damage is incalculable. If we left the company to him, it would cause discontent among the other employees. I consider them a part of my family too, so I've decided not to let him inherit the company,
Jim declared. I replied, That's Jim's decision. I have nothing to say about it. But internally, I don't care what happened to my soon-to-be ex-husband. Jim then offered,
As a token of our apology, we've arranged a new apartment for Lucy and Mark. We know it's not much, but please accept it as an apology. And of course, we'll provide adequate compensation.
He handed me the contract for an apartment spacious enough for Mark and me. It was already in my name. It was a very genuine offer, so I gratefully accepted. Thank you very much. We'll make it our new home. Unaware of this conversation, David was staring blankly out of the hospital room window. When Mark and I entered his room, Mark ran to him concerned.
Dad, are you okay? Does it hurt? Do you have to go to work?
I'm on leave from work now, but I'll be home soon. Until then, listen to Mom and be a good boy,
David responded. He seemed oblivious to the seriousness of the situation. I asked him about the woman he hadn't seen since the accident. By the way, I haven't seen that woman since that day. I said. David hugged Mark and replied,
Ah, that woman. It was just a fling, so it's fine. All I need is Mark and Lucy.
I was amazed at how conveniently he returned to the family once the woman left him. I couldn't help but laugh at his absurdity. My laughter made David think he was forgiven. He too smiled, seemingly in a good mood. A month later, with my in-laws looking after Mark, I accompanied David for his discharge from the hospital, fulfilling my last duty as his wife. I've taken care of various procedures during your hospitalization. The car's been scrapped, and the settlement with the other party's insurance company is done, I informed him.
Typical Lucy. I'm proud to have you as my wife. Thank you,
he replied.
The house looks tidier. Have you gotten rid of a lot of stuff? There's nothing like being home,
David observed, likely noticing that mine and Mark's belongings had been packed. Right on cue, the doorbell rang.
Moving company!
I called out and opened the door. As the movers entered, David finally seemed to realize something was amiss.
Hey, what's this about?
He asked me. It's obvious, isn't it? They're movers, I replied.
Why? Why are movers here?
Because we're moving.
Wait a minute,
David said, confused. I've waited more than enough, I responded coldly. When I found out about your affair, I was waiting all this time for you to stop and come back, I said.
I thought you had forgiven me,
David said, bewildered, as I directed the movers. Leave all the men's items here. I turned back to him. Forgive you? That's out of the question. The thought of a man who cheats while having a family disgusts me. Once you knew she left you, you conveniently said, "You're the only one for me. I'm getting a divorce. Everything else has been left to my lawyer," I stated clearly. I left the house with the movers. Ignoring David's shouts behind me, I picked up Mark from my in-laws and headed to our new home. I later heard that David had become a laughingstock at his father's company, losing any chance of taking over. The divorce was finalized smoothly, and I received a substantial settlement. David paid a hefty price for his affair and accident, losing not just his wife, but the respect of his parents. But I don't care about such a man anymore. As for me, I've recently secured a new job. The qualifications I studied for came in handy. I'm glad I acted with careful planning. Now, I look forward to living a happy life with Mark.